Hello, everyone, and welcome to Hearsay. As usual, I'm your host, Diane, and with me is my producer, Danny. Hi, Danny.
Hey, Diane, how's it going?
It's going. It's been, I'm not going to lie, it's been a horrible week.
Oh, wow.
But yeah, it's been awful. But I have to say, the highlight of the week was talking to David and John, who's our interview today, who are
Yeah.
the Queer Pod Money Guys.
Queer
Like,
Money
they're fantastic.
Podcast.
Queer Money Podcast. That's it.
Yeah.
Don't worry. Like, I say it right when I'm actually with them.
I love, you know what? I think we should consider recommending that they rename it to the Queer Pod Moneycast, though. Because that has a ring to it.
just to adapt. Just to adapt.
Well, Moneycast too sounds very nice. Like
Moneycast sounds
I would like to
awesome.
be
Like, I like
casted
some
some money.
Moneycast.
Yeah.
And I have to tell you, I listened to a ton of their episodes in prepping for the interview,
Oh, yeah?
and they were mind-blowingly full of great information.
Yeah, they're great. So funny story how I actually met David. I worked at a financial institution and was like, hey, I should probably learn a little bit more about finances, like my own personal
'Cause you're right.
finances. Yeah, because I'm kind of like in the finance industry. And so I was like, okay, I'm gonna look up some finance podcasts. But I was like, but why not make it queer? And
Of
so
course.
I literally just typed in like queer personal finance or something. I found their podcast. I started listening to them. Um, and then one day I was at work and somehow I got involved in like this queer like business resource group email chain. And one of the guys, I was like, dang, that name looks really familiar. Like, where have I seen that
Why
before?
do I know that?
And then I
Yeah.
saw his face and I was like, oh, he looks really familiar. And then we ended up in a meeting and I was like, oh, I recognize that voice. And I was like, he's from the podcast. I was like, that's so funny. And so we
That's
worked at the
awesome.
same place. And so I got to tell him, I was like, hey, I love your podcast. I had no idea that you worked here. That's so crazy. And
I have to say, I recommend their podcast to anyone and everyone because they make everything so clear. And
yeah,
whether you're queer or not queer, like, it
right.
is the greatest. But it was really
Hmm.
interesting, and I have to say this for everyone, like, listening, they and for even you too, Danny. Like, there are a lot of people who I'm sure will be like, "Damn, those are some ignorant questions." Well, you know what? I know a lot of things, but one of the things I don't know what it's like to be is queer. And so if I
Hmm.
ask questions, I'm trying to ask them to, like, represent everyone that doesn't understand and, like, what the
Right.
specific issues are.
Yeah.
And I think, like, and I have to say I'm so grateful to David and John because they answered all of my questions with such kindness and clarity and not condescension about, like, that's a dumb,
Hmm.
like, there was none of that. They were so
Yeah.
good. And I think that's kind of all we can do to branch out as people because it's hard. A lot of us we all have things that we don't you'll never know what it's like to be a white middle-aged woman. Like, it's never gonna
Yeah.
happen. It's never
Yeah.
gonna happen to you.
Yeah.
And and so if you and like that's all we can do is be brave to ask questions and be kind in our responses to people that are at least curious enough to care about our experiences and what's specific to our different experiences. So,
Agree.
everyone
Agree.
listening, like, yeah, forgive me for anything that sounds stupid. Like, I don't mind trying to sound stupid in the pursuit of learning more.
Right.
And a lot of it too is because, and we talk about this during the interview, you guys will hear, is because a lot of the LGBTQ people because I've lived in New York City for so long, and a lot of them work in finance, my friends, you know what I mean, that are LGBTQ community, right? Like, they don't have the same
Hmm.
kind of issues that people do in other parts of the country. They live in a place where
Right.
they've been able to be out safely for a very long time. Like,
Hmm.
they
Hmm.
have more education when it comes to things like finances and stuff. So
Hmm.
really, the guys had commissioned a poll about
Oh, wow.
basically queer money, and the results
Oh,
blew my
wow.
mind. And yeah, we got to delve into it into some depth. And yeah, I absolutely adored them. So, Danny, I can't thank you enough for setting
Wow.
that up.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. So for all the listeners, I've been on a vacation in which I did not have internet access for like a week, which was nice, but also like very stressful when you're like, oh my God, I have so much work to do and I have no idea what is happening. So I like set up the interview. I've not heard it or anything, but I'm super excited to listen to it. And yeah, and John and David are both really, really hyper intelligent and
Oh,
helpful
so
and
smart.
caring people. So yeah, I'm super glad that you enjoyed
Yeah,
interviewing
and
them.
explain
And
things really well. And then I had fun talking to them because and we discussed this as well because I wanted to know a lot about them and like how they got into this because I wanted to send everyone to their podcast if they have specific questions about actual finance and money things. I didn't want them to come on just to
right,
regurgitate. I just wanted to find out how did they do this and what made them, get into it and
right,
why it's
hmm
important to like the community.
yeah.
So it was really cool. So that's
hmm
the interview today, and then you and I should just go straight into the detour.
The detour.
Detour.
Yeah, I've literally not. So I literally just got into my house from the airport right now. So I have no
I
idea.
am
Like,
so impressed with you.
I
I'm so
really,
impressed with
I
you,
haven't
Danny.
heard any new, like, I haven't read any. This is insane. Like, I feel like I was literally living under a rock. So,
That's
but
I have to say that's fabulous.
it's fabulous. And you know what, though? Here's the thing: things don't stop happening just because you have earmuffs on. So, so it definitely feels like it's nice because you get to disconnect, but then it's also like stressful because you're like, I wonder what's happening.
I
So,
think that's also like a symptom of like that's you being. I think what are you like? 14 years younger than I am. They're 15 years younger, like that. There's like a because I remember vaguely what it was like before like cell phones. Like it's a distant memory, and it didn't last long, but I
right.
remember it, and
hmm
I get okay with it. Like I don't get as stressed out as like
Yeah.
millennials do when they're disconnected.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of remember those days, and it was interesting because we were reliving it. Like we'd be like, "Hey," like you forget those little tricks that you have used to have to know. Like, okay, we're meeting at this time at this place, and
I
if
need a watch, or I need to like a church tower to listen to the
yeah,
bells ringing.
yeah, like weird little things, or like you just need to like work on your people skills with like hostesses. You can't just text someone like, "Hey, what part of the restaurant are you in?" Like you got to actually talk to the hostess, be like, "Hey, like I'm meeting a party with these people in it, and this is what they look like," and
This is like amazing. So where can you tell everyone like where you were? I want to hear all about your
oh
trip.
yeah, yeah. So my mom in 2019 bought everybody cruise tickets. Like the very first, she's always wanted to go on a cruise, Um,
Awesome.
so she bought everyone cruise tickets for Christmas in 2019.
That's, that's
And we were
such
supposed to
bad
go.
timing.
Yeah, we were supposed to go in May of 2020, and like I think it was like one of the first big COVID outbreaks was on a cruise ship. And at that time, I
It
remembered,
was. It was. And I remember they like parked it outside like Seattle, I think, or somewhere in
yeah,
the
yeah,
Pacific Northwest. By the way, I'm
yeah.
not naked. I'm in a swimsuit because I'm
Oh,
going to the
okay.
beach after this. I just
Well,
like, I'm so pasty. I always have to wait for the sun to start getting like really low in the sky before I can
mhm.
go.
Well,
Yeah.
if you were naked, I'd just be jealous because it's very liberating. But yeah, and at that time, I remember Trump. It was like the weirdest thing because there was all these Americans that had COVID, but they were on a cruise ship, and he didn't want the numbers of like infected Americans to look really high, so he
Yeah.
like made the
Stay
decision
on
to
the
just
boat.
keep them in the ocean. He was just like, if we just keep them in the ocean, we have less infected Americans. It was the weirdest thing. And so we were all like, my whole family was like, yeah, this is not looking good. That was like in
No.
February or something. This was pretty early on. And of course, all the cruises got canceled. But yeah, here we are a few years later, and things have cooled down a little bit. It was a little scary. Um,
Was
it
it? Was
was,
it? But
even though like the
just because of the octogen, like what was it, the octogenarians that made it scary? You know what? I used to have a joke with my husband because Marcus and I were together like 17 years, and we always used to joke that like if one of us really wanted a divorce, the way we'd ask is be like, "Hey, I got tickets to a cruise," because like it just seems like you could just easily push someone off like in international waters, and like nothing happens. Like no one
oh my
investigates,
god, yeah,
nothing happens. We're just like,
yeah,
oh, so we know like it's
it's
over.
pretty
If I'm like,
scary.
hey, got us tickets to a cruise. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, it was definitely an adventure, and I didn't know that after you get back on land that you're just going to still feel like you're in the ocean, like you have your
oh
sea legs
yeah,
for a while, and I
yeah,
totally like in this moment the room is shaking around me. And I'm
that's
glad,
crazy.
yeah, they say it lasts a few days.
And so where did the cruise go?
We went to Puerto Vallarta, we went
Nice.
to Mazatlan, and then Cabo San Lucas.
Oh
And
wow.
I did not know how rich Cabo San Lucas is.
It's
Like, oh
crazy.
my God, yachts with helicopters on them.
Yeah, no,
Like,
it's like Portofino of the Pacific. It's insane.
and it's one of the most beautiful places I've ever seen. I think it's the most beautiful place I've ever seen. I did
Really?
not know, like, just natural beauty, like the ocean is like cerulean blue with like desert beaches and like sandstone, like
Oh,
rocks jetting out of the water. And it's just, it's insane.
stunning.
Yeah. You can't, I couldn't fathom that I was seeing that with my eyes. It was
That's so
much,
cool.
much better than the cruise ship dining. So,
I've only been on a cruise ship one time, and it was because I was going with a friend who, like, it was a European cruise, and she was the kind of person that, like, like, this is the way it always goes because I plan everything and I arrange it, but like I would rather just be like alone and take Eurorail and like that kind of thing and
yeah. Yeah.
not do
That's
anything
how I
touristy.
normally
But
am. That sounds
yeah,
nice.
right. But unless someone else gets it for you, right? So, and
Right.
I knew she wouldn't do it because like I'd end up carrying her luggage around Europe and like doing and I was just like, I can't. Like, we'll
Yeah.
just do like a cruise. We'll do the ports. This trip is
Hmm.
for her anyway.
Yeah.
And it was a series of such mind blowing disasters. Like, it was incredible. The first night, they have like the announcer person that does the voice, like tonight on the cruise, the
Yeah.
movie,
Yeah.
like, so it was like this and it was like a fake British voice too. It was very odd. But the movie opening night on the cruise was
Mhm.
Titanic, and I'm like, are they kidding me?
Yeah, they were okay, they were playing that Celine Dion song in the dining room.
No,
Yeah. And
no,
you're
you're like,
feeling
it
like the
doesn't
boat,
end
like,
well.
yeah, I was like, "Why would you play that song?" But here's the thing, it was, like, not the, original song, it was, like, a cheesy
Like
instrumental version of it.
music version, like the elevator music
Yeah, it
version.
was the elevator,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
So,
Yeah. No,
that
it
and
was
Simon and
crazy.
Garfunkel.
We had a guy die on our cruise too, and then we had
Oh
to
my
like ditch his
gosh.
body like on these like
What?
islands. Yeah, like it was
What?
crazy. It was like the
Wow.
craziest.
Wow.
And
Who
it was like the maiden voyage of this particular ship. And so like all kinds of bugs and stuff are wrong with it. And then me also, I had like a ton of trouble because I have zero sense of direction and everything in one of those cruise ships looks the same. I mean, there were nights that I was just
Yeah.
lost and I like spent the night in a hallway.
What?
Because I couldn't get back to my suite. Like I had no idea where I was. I was like, I can't find anything.
Oh my
My
god, that
friend
is
got knocked
hilarious.
out by the elevator. It was incredible. Like it was
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and then she had like this was okay. This was the funniest. I'm I'm sorry. I want to listen to your trip, but like this is going to be
No,
the
I
best
wanna
story
listen to
ever.
yours.
So that she's not a friend. She's like someone that like my older sister grew up with. It was so I can't. She's like the female Danny DeVito, right? Like even when we were young, like she's just like this little Italian from like Bensonhurst, Brooklyn. Like it's like I can't even little.
Yeah.
Oh my god! And so we go to Nice, and I was like, look, while we're in Nice, you need to see Monaco, like because I'd go to work for Monaco every year for like a month. So I was
Mhm.
like, you have to see Monaco. So I
Yeah.
arranged. I spent like 500 euros on like a private driver to drive us from like Nice to Monaco.
Mhm.
And as soon as we get to Monaco, we get to the Casino de Paris, and she's like, I gotta go to the can. And I'm like, okay. So she goes to the bathroom, and I start to take a look at this Salvador Dali exhibit because I had actually. This sounds like this was this everyone. This is when my life was dreamy. I had just bought a couple Salvador Dali's like originals, so I was like, oh sweet, let me go look at the exhibit, and and it finally, she's in there forever. She finally comes back out. She's like, give me your Purell. And I'm like, what? What's up? She's like, give me your Purell. And I'm like, this is like before Purell's a thing. This is like in 2005. And she's
Mhm.
like, no, I need your Purell. And I'm like, hold on. I'm getting it out of my purse, man. Just take a minute. And I'm like, what'd you do? And I was just joking. I'm like, what'd you do? Take a dump on your hands? She's like, how did you know? How did you know? And I'm like, what?
What?
So apparently she'd had like some kind of violent diarrhea episode,
Oh,
had
shit.
cracked like all of her veins. The water wasn't, I don't know why the water wasn't, and she's like, and my pants are full of crap. I was like, what?
Oh,
And
no.
she's like, I gotta go home. I'm like, come on. Can we just go
Oh.
buy you new pants and underwear? Like, I'll get you something new. Like,
Yeah.
I'll treat you. Like, look,
Yeah.
she's like, no, no, no. So and I'm like, I want to. I was like, what a nightmare. I'm like, so we
Yeah.
immediately had to get back in the car. She didn't
Oh.
see anything of like Monte Carlo. We go back to Nice. She I'm like, I'm gonna go wander around Nice at the very least. She's like, I'm
Yeah.
gonna sit on the tender, I'm gonna take in the tender, back to the main boat.
Yeah.
So like 8 hours pass. Eight
Mhm.
hours pass. And I get on the tender. It's time to go back to the boat. And I go up to the top and she's still sitting there. And I'm like, what the hell? What are you doing? She's like, this is the first tender to go back. And I'm like, have you been sitting for 8 hours in your own crap? Like just baking in the hot
Shut
sun
up.
of France sun?
No way. Oh my what? What?
But she didn't. She was like, "Shut up! You're so mean." I'm like, "This is hilarious," and I'm like, "Oh my god, you've been
No.
stuck here." And she's just like, "Shut up!" And I'm like, "Oh my god, I honestly couldn't. I was like, I couldn't stop laughing." And she's just like, she was so mad at me. She didn't talk to me for like 2 days.
Oh.
And we were sharing a room, which was the funniest. But like, I mean, when
Yeah.
I say anything that could happen, how there's always like the more
Oh yeah.
expensive restaurant on the ship that you can pay to go to.
Yep. Mhm.
So like we were eating in the fancy restaurant like one
Mhm.
night, and
Yeah.
it's just glass and it looks out to like whatever the pool deck or whatever it is. I'm
Uh-huh.
not kidding. Someone stumbled up to the glass like where we were eating and just vomited like in the middle of our steak
What?
dinner. Like it was like anything that could happen.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That sounds like a cruise ship to me. That like
So
just
you
the things that happen on board and oh Lord. Yeah.
wait, so tell me more. So Cabo was the most beautiful place you've ever seen.
Definitely the most beautiful. I mean, just the beaches, like you have like the Gulf of I think it's the Gulf of California meets the Pacific Ocean there. And it's
Beautiful.
like, yeah, insanely gorgeous. And then Puerto Vallarta was amazing as well.
Awesome.
I got a massage on the beach and
Ah,
yeah, it was like 20 bucks for 30 minutes, which is like really affordable.
what?
And then right
That's
after getting a massage, like all the different salespeople are like, "Hey, do you want to buy this? Hey, do you want to buy that? Like, I see you're spending money out here." And one of them came up to me, and he had the most like just standard American accent. He's like, "Hey, bro, what's up? You like these
oh wow.
blankets?"
And
And I
you're
was like,
like, hey, bro.
"Yeah." I was like, like they're cool, but I'm all right." And then he's like, "Oh, okay. Well, do you want any pills? Do you want any cocaine? You want any lines?
Wow.
You want any ecstasy?"
Wow.
Like he like literally he went down the list and
And
uh,
like everything you said, you're like, no, no, no. And he just kept going, right? Like,
yeah, I was like, "No, no. Well, no, no." So, yeah, so it was interesting. It was cool. I spent
did
that
your mom
day
have fun?
she did. Yeah. I you know what? My mom has always been pretty scared of going to Mexico. Which in my mind is hilarious because she lives in Las Cruces, New Mexico, which
Yeah.
like all of the scariest moments in my life have been there. Like I lived
Right.
in a very methy
Not
neighborhood.
not in actual Mexico where you have
Yeah.
spent a lot of time.
No, like I remember she
Yeah.
called me when I was in Mexico City, and I don't know if anyone's familiar with it, but there's the super rich neighborhood called Polanco, and that neighborhood is like just richy rich, beautiful. Like I could
Yeah.
not afford to live there. Like you got to pay like for a one bedroom, it's probably like at least 1,600 a month. So it's like closer to like an American city. Like
Manhattan prices.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I remember I was talking to her on the phone and she's like, "Oh my god, you're in Mexico City right now. Like, are you going to be safe?" And I'm like, "Are you going to be safe cuz in your neighborhood like that's where I've almost been mugged before. There's like car
Right.
poppings, there's always
Yeah.
crazy stuff going on there. So, yeah, no, it was I think an enlightening experience for her to be able to go to Mexico and be like, "Okay, cool. This is nice."
Cool.
Yeah, it's like
It's not
yeah.
freaky. Yeah.
Yeah, there's parts that are of course, you know, it's more of like a second world country compared to the US, like poverty you can see and that kind of stuff. But like as far as safety goes,
But
like
they're shady places everywhere.
yeah. Yeah, and honestly, from my perspective, I've most of the time that I've ever felt unsafe, it's been in like unsafe American areas, like in the US, probably
Yeah,
because
no
I've been
kidding.
more American places. But like, yeah, like I would be pretty sketched out in certain parts of Denver, and
Which I think in some ways is getting progressively more unsafe.
Right. Yeah. And
Yeah,
speaking of which, so like I'm just looking at the news right now because I know we want to touch on some news. Uh, and I'm seeing that there's another mass shooting since I've been gone.
there have been, so the last count I was aware of since the one in Buffalo, there have been 20.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, that's
And
insane.
I think almost all of them were done with AR style. And like that's like people, like you know what it really drives me nuts is like people get really jumpy. So like I tweeted something the other day about, guns and masks and things like that. And everyone
Hmm.
on Twitter, and like I always try and make my Twitter like a safe space where everyone can speak their mind, but like don't be an a-hole. Like don't be mean to other people. You can have a conversation, but like don't be a jerk. Like not
Right.
appropriate. Like
Yeah.
not where I live, right? Like no,
Hmm.
because like we're
Yeah.
never going to resolve anything unless we're able to talk to people that have differences, and we all have a
Hmm.
reason we believe what we do, and it's
Hmm.
really imperative that we find out what that reason is so that we can solve the problems, right? And the problem with
Right.
a lot of the people I know on the right at the moment, they're only getting their information from sources that tell them about the great replacement theory, which is mind blowing that somehow
Hmm.
liberals,
Yep.
and I should point out to everyone, like I'm an independent. Like when I ran for Congress, I ran as an independent. Like, obviously I'm liberal and progressive, but I'm an
Hmm.
independent. Like, and
Yeah.
it was like the liberals were into the great replacement theory, like actively making sure that there are enough immigrants who typically vote Democrat. I mean, like that's just
Hmm.
madness. Like that's such a crazy conspiracy theory,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they believe that everyone I've talked to that is a big Second Amendment, like single issue person, honestly believes that it's a slippery slope, and they really, really, genuinely believe that liberals and Democrats and progressives want to take away their guns,
Hmm.
and and I and that's just not. It's absolutely not true.
Hmm.
What
Yeah.
people want gone, at least a start, like a good place to start is get rid of the insano military style rifle that everyone is using in almost every one of these mass shootings.
Right.
Like that's totally reasonable.
Yeah.
And like if you need them for work, like I have a ton, like most, I think we've talked about this, most of my family is active duty military.
Hmm.
And they need them for work. You need one for work, and so you need to
Hmm.
take it to the range to practice so that when you get
Hmm.
deployed, you know how to use it. Not a
Yeah.
problem. You're an 18-year-old that is on like suicide watch, shouldn't be allowed
Hmm.
to get one.
Yeah. 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 And you know what? It's crazy because before we actually got on the cruise, we were in Long Beach, and in my mind, like I've been to Long Beach before, but I guess I didn't really like
Oh my god, we used to
understand what it
shoot there for
was.
NCIS all the time. The
Oh,
Port of Long
really?
Beach. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah, we used
it
to shoot
was.
there all the time.
Wow, that is so interesting. But I didn't realize like there's parts of Long Beach, like Long Beach is an urban area. I thought it was like a suburb of LA or something, but no, it's like it's its own little urban area. And as part of that, like there are parts of Long Beach that are really sketchy.
Yeah,
And my mom decided, hey, we're getting there a day before, and this is really just so that way we can make sure that we get to the cruise on time. So I don't want to spend a lot of money on the hotel room
right.
the day before the cruise.
Typical
So
mom thing.
So I'm
Total
gonna get
mom move.
the cheapest hotel room I can find in Long Beach.
Which was probably like some sort of crack den slash prostitute haven.
Legit, like okay.
Yeah.
Oh man, I didn't take a lot of photos on this vacation because I was trying to like stay in the moment. But
That's
this
brilliant.
hotel, I was
Yeah.
like, I have to take because I have a decent camera now. It's
Oh my
like I
God,
have to take like
please,
the detailed photos, like you zoom in on the window crevices, and
please send me some of these. Like, I need to
yeah,
see these.
like the lights. But the worst part is me and my little 13-year-old brother decide to walk to the gas station with our siblings, and
Uh-huh.
it's literally right across the hotel. And while we're in there, this guy,
So, wait,
mhm,
I just need to know how many are you in this group of siblings?
the siblings, there were four of us.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
All right.
yeah. Plus, there's two adults, and then we have my aunt and uncle and cousin. So it
All
was a
right.
decent group of people, but just the four siblings were there. And this guy walks in with a ski mask on
Oh my
and and a
By
trench
the way,
coat.
it's June in like the Southern
Yeah, yeah.
California.
And like,
Okay.
don't get me wrong. I mean, like, COVID and all that has kind of changed our perception of what is acceptable to walk into a store with. But this
Right.
was not like a, hey, I'm trying to prevent infection at like rates from going up. This was like a, I'm trying to obscure my identity. And then with this, the trench coat, and it looked like it was jam packed. And so
Oh
we
my
were just,
God.
yeah. And this is
Like waiting for
after.
like a suicide bomber or something.
Right. And this is like, this is after passing a guy, like we're walking into the gas station and there's just like a random guy sitting on the side of the road screaming, "Ah!" like
Oh my
random stuff. You know what I
God.
mean? There's like there's like what I
I shouldn't
assume are
laugh.
prostitutes. There's like, this is like the sketchiest neighborhood that I've been in many years. And yeah, and this guy walks in a trench coat and we are like, all right, my instincts just kick in and I'm like getting out of there. But my little brother's behind me and he's not paying attention. So I look around because I'm trying to get him out of there. This guy with the ski mask is in there and he's my little brother is just like looking
Oblivious
at the
because he's
ceiling
13.
in the gas.
And
Who
you're like,
looks at
what are
a
you
ceiling in a
doing?
gas station? So yeah, so
Oh my
that's
gosh.
how our
Dude,
trip started. But
that's crazy.
with all that said, yeah, like the gun violence in the US and just like the amount of sketchy things that happen here is just unfortunately like it's just so crazy.
Well, it's so
So
unnecessary too. It's just like so unnecessary, and it's honestly like I genuinely believe it's from a communication like breakdown at the most elemental level between all kinds
oh
of
yeah.
people, and
Yeah. And
it's
actually
I
like oh, I was gonna say like I have some stats just
ooh
comparing Mexico firearm like murders with firearms per million compared to the US.
ooh what we got? What do
And
we got?
Mexico is rated number 12 at
Okay,
24.42 murders with firearms per million,
per
and the
okay.
US is ranked number 10 with 32.57 per
Damn, and
million.
that's with all those crazy cartels and
Mhm.
like journalists getting shot along Juarez and like that kind of thing.
Right. Yeah.
Holy cow!
Yeah, we also
It's now
United
the
States
leading cause
also
of it's a leading cause of death, I think, for people under 18 now. It's like,
yeah, it's insane. So the U.S. also has more rape per capita than Mexico at 27.3 per million, than Mexico at 13.2. Total crimes, the U.S. ranks number one, Mexico ranks 12. Total crimes per 1,000, the U.S. ranks 22, Mexico ranks 46. Um, Violent crime, the United States ranks number one, Mexico ranks 40th. So the United States has 6 times more violent crime than Mexico. So it's interesting when you think about our perceptions of what is safe and what is unsafe,
right,
and then you
right.
compare it to the objective data, and you're like, oh wow, you know. And then you start thinking about how the United States is the richest country in the world, and
Yeah,
yet the economic disparities and the gun violence and the gang violence and how yeah, it's more decentralized than the crime in Mexico. Like Mexico crime is often very centralized, run by cartels and
right.
everything, and that is terrifying, don't get me wrong. But yeah, it's just it is bizarre. It is bizarre when you
No,
like
it's
start
really bizarre.
really
And
seeing the reality.
well, the crazy thing is that like we're accepting it. Do you know what I mean? Like we're going like, yeah, okay, all
Yep.
right,
Yeah.
sure. People could just get murdered while going to school or church. It's just like it's
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it's fine just because we don't want to give up like this one thing.
Right.
It's like
We want the freedom to own guns, as opposed to the freedom to feel safe in our communities.
right.
You
And I
know?
think we've talked about this before, and I'm sure everyone's like, stop talking. But like, the Second Amendment literally begins for a well regulated militia. And that was because we had no standing army at the time. It
Hmm.
wasn't a thing. So everyone, every like, male of a certain age had to be part of a militia. And what you would have as far as like
Hmm.
bear arms, it was like a musket where you could maybe, I think that it's like 4 to 6 shots per minute is the maximum that you could
Right.
do,
That's like
you
you're like
know?
the best gun person. Like,
in all of like revolutionary America, you know?
right. Yeah.
And so, and we've talked about like some of the arguments, and it's not like, um, in some places, like if I could get rid of every gun on the planet, like yeah, that'd be great. That's never going to happen though.
Yeah.
So, and like in some places they're really necessary, and then there are sometimes they can be very useful for things. Um, but even like, people are like, well, hunter, and like, no hunter in the world is using an AR because you would just obliterate the thing that you're trying to you're killing. You know what I mean? Like you wouldn't even be
Mhm.
able to eat it. Like it would just be blown to smithereens.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that it goes to tell you, if like they're identifying those children by their DNA because they were unrecognizable. I mean, I mean, like at some point, I wonder if it's kind of like Emmett Till. I don't know if you remember that it was 1955. He was it was a poor. I think he was 14 at the time. He was lynched,
Mhm.
and for apparently hitting on a white woman, which was obviously never proven in any way, shape, or form.
Mhm.
And his mom let the casket be open and pictures be taken so that people could see what was happening to the African American communities
Yeah.
around the country.
Yeah.
And it started, it was the beginning of the start of change and the civil rights movement and things like that. And I wonder, not that I would ask any parent to show a picture of their child blown to bits, but at some point I wonder, you know, it's one of the most effective things in like trials and this and that. When you see the result of people's actions,
Mhm.
it can change
Mhm.
things for the better. And I mean, it's obscene that it would even maybe even take something like that. It shouldn't
Yeah.
take something like that.
Yeah.
Want to hear a random fact
Yeah. I love
just
random
to brighten
facts.
things up? 40% of all the goods in America come through the port of Los Angeles.
Really?
40%. Yeah.
Wow. That's yeah, you wouldn't expect that, but it
No,
makes
it's a
sense
huge.
actually. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like so many people, I mean, that's going back to the wall, right? Like it's not even I understand I understand when conservatives will say that they want to do more about illegal immigration or like we need to address things. Although I think oftentimes it is coming from a racist place and not from an actual like valid
And you
place
know
of
what?
concern. But
I'm even going to say
just
this
the
really
wall is
quickly.
so
Yeah,
dumb.
I'm going to intercede anymore. I don't Trumpism, like the people that are like now in the Republican Party aren't like classic conservatives. Like I wouldn't
Oh,
even
not at
call
all.
them conservatives. Yeah, I wouldn't even
No.
call them conservatives.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
authoritarianism
a
versus, you know,
right.
actual like believing in democracy. Like it's not conservatism anymore.
Right.
Conservatism.
And but these are all the people who are like, why are we sending money down to Central America? It's like, okay, well, you know what? We're trying to make things better there so that people don't want to leave, right? We're
Right.
investing there in their governments and this and that
Mhm.
and democracy, so they
Mhm.
don't want to come here.
Right.
Like, there's a reason we provide aid.
Also, can we
It's
just
not.
say like so many of those countries are totally screwed up because of us?
Yeah.
Like we will go in there and basically like insert like proxy governments, proxy US
Right,
governments
CIA
that
coup led type
completely deplete
situations.
their
Yeah.
citizens of like completely impoverish their country just
Yeah.
that way the US has better trade deals. And then we're like, why is there so much violent crime?
Yeah, what's going
Why do so many
on?
people want to leave these countries?
Why is the government corrupt? Yeah.
No idea, dude. No, yeah, no idea.
Oh my
So,
gosh, it's so crazy. So what was
yeah.
your favorite part of the trip?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Um, they did have a very nice cocktail bar, and
Ooh.
my favorite part was literally just trying like every cocktail under the sun because I mean, I'm not really a heavy drinker these days, but just like the mixology component of it is very nice. Um, and then so that should probably not be my favorite part. My so in case my family is listening, my
Yeah.
favorite part was being at the beach with my family.
Okay, that's nice. That's super sweet.
Yeah, yeah.
That's super
So,
sweet.
we
I'm
were
really
in
I'm glad you
Mazatlan
got.
and
Ooh,
yeah, yeah,
yeah.
we met this guy that's from it's called the Huicholes tribe, indigenous peoples in Mexico, and they for many centuries have been known for their beadwork. And
How
so they have
cool.
like really beautiful like beaded jewelry, like earrings and bracelets and different things like that.
Ooh,
And
did you get some
I bought
stuff?
some yeah, I bought these really pretty wolf earrings. I don't have them on me right now, but and then I got to LA and with one of my best friends, Hannah, she had just bought some earrings, so we're like, oh, we'll do a tradesy. So now we
Oh
have
my
like
God,
one
how
of each, which
cool.
is
Oh my God, how
yeah, which
fun.
is really cute. Yeah.
I'm so glad you got to
So
like have a
yeah.
nice like night in LA too.
Thank you so
I'm so
much.
glad you had a good time.
Yeah.
Like you need
Yeah.
it. You
And
work
then
really hard.
many apologies to listeners too. Like you guys have probably noticed we like started doing tons of shorts and tons of content and then this last week it was like just the podcast, but now you know
And
why.
that's mostly
So
because only Danny knows how to do this stuff and I'm incompetent. And I did. Like I'm not even gonna get into details. I'm just gonna say it I can't even explain how bad this week was. Like it's been brutal. But it's okay. Somehow it's all gonna be fine. Danny, it's all
mhm.
gonna be
Mhm.
fine.
Things always have a way of working out in the end. So
Oh, they do.
I did want to
I
ask
hope.
you, did you hear about that political ad from Democratic challenger Charles Booker, who's running for U.S. Senate in Kentucky?
No, is he running against Mitchie? Mr. Mitch
I'm
McConnell?
so he's running against Rand Paul, and
Okay.
there's a lot of backlash right now against an ad that he came out with, where
Is he a Democrat or a Republican?
he's a Democrat, yeah,
Nice. Okay.
and he in his advertisement he wore a noose around his neck and talked about how basically Republicans have voted against making lynching a hate crime.
Yeah, but they have.
They have, yeah.
I mean,
And
like, and it is like the ultimate hate crime.
right, yeah. And so yeah, so I I don't know exactly what why people are outraged by this. I haven't really read through the stories. I just know that it's something that people are upset about and but my initial reaction to the ad was just like, wow, that's powerful.
Yeah.
And honestly, like that's the reality of what it's like for so many decades. For so many, I mean, really it's been hundreds of years
For
uh
so many
for
people of color
yeah, for people of color, for black people who live in the US, that is a reality of what you're up
of their life.
against. Yeah. So,
Like I
um
think we've talked about this before, like that. You know that I think the song pre-existed Billie Holiday, but there's that amazing song called "Strange Fruit,"
mm,
and "Strange Fruit," like it's one of the most beautiful songs ever. It's literally talking about the bodies hanging from trees from lynching. That's the strange fruit hanging from the
right.
trees. I mean,
Yeah.
like and you know what? Like we're talking. Why everyone gets pissed off? There's such a double standard between the right and the left as well too. You know, you've got like Marjorie Taylor Greene. You know, like putting Democrats' faces on a car that she blows up with like an incendiary round from a 50 caliber rifle. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Like crazy
Right.
stuff.
Right.
Like crazy.
Yeah.
And I think and we haven't talked at all about we should maybe do like another episode. Maybe we should do a bonus one later this week about like the Amber Heard Johnny Depp because I think a lot of
Yeah.
people misunderstand what that was about. It wasn't about abuse. It wasn't about any of that stuff. That's not what the trial was about. It was a defamation case based on an op-ed that she wrote claiming she was a victim of domestic violence
Mhm.
where she didn't even name Johnny Depp.
Mm.
And so the case was really whether you liked either one of them or not
Yeah.
is irrelevant. The case was like, are you allowed to talk about your experience that
Mm.
happened to you,
Interesting.
even if you don't name someone?
Right.
And the
Yeah.
answer was no. If you're a woman, you are not allowed to talk about your experiences.
Right.
That's so
Yeah. Yeah. Which is
that was another
terrifying
blow. Yeah, which is
cuz
another blow for women. And like
so many women are in that position. And I don't know the
uh,
details of that case and I've heard like different things in different directions, but yeah, like in general, right?
Yeah,
Like,
aside from all the insanity, the case is really, are you allowed to talk about the things that have happened to you?
hmm yeah. And I don't
And
know
the
about
answer
you,
was no.
Diane, but I believe in free speech.
Yeah. I absolutely. I believe
Eh,
that's the First Amendment.
yeah.
And
yeah.
but like, and this is like in reference to the person running for Senate, that, like, are you allowed to talk about, the experience of your culture and people in the political ad? You should be able
hmm
to,
Right.
without people freaking out.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, there can be blowback, and that's also perfectly fine. The blowback itself is also free speech, you know? And
Right.
I think that that's where it's interesting because if you like, so many people, oh, free speech, free speech. Well, yeah, you had free speech. You said it, you did it, and now people are pissed. They have their free speech too, you know?
Right. They're allowed to
Um,
talk back. Like,
yeah,
it's crazy.
yeah. Just like people get upset about Starbucks having red cups instead of Christmas trees on their cups. You know what I mean? That's their free speech.
Is that a thing? Is that a
Yeah.
thing?
Yeah, that's why honestly,
No.
okay, let's be real. One of the things that drives me the most crazy about our modern political climate is when
Oh my
conservatives try
god.
and claim that Democrats or like liberals in general are the party of outrage when they literally have hissy fits over red Starbucks cups, completely
Oh
shut
no.
down. Yeah,
They're the snowflake. Like,
it's
seriously,
a
it's like they're the ultimate
oh
snowflakes,
yeah,
because
it is
everything is like,
everything. It is everything,
oh
you
no.
know? They are constantly outraged over the tiniest things. And then they say some crazy ass shit. Yeah. And then expect, "Oh, they don't like racists. That is the
Well,
party of outrage
that's the
those
part.
snowflakes." Like, yeah, no,
Yeah.
racism sucks, dude.
To be honest, there's so much fake outrage going on all over the place. Like, and
Yeah.
again, it like totally negates anyone having serious dialogue and solving problems. Like, that's
Oh yeah. Oh
the
yeah.
biggest issue. That's the thing that drives me the most nuts. It's just like, what's happening? So, what are you doing for the rest of the day?
Um honestly, like I just unpacked. Oh, I love packing light, Diane.
I'm so proud of you.
It took me 5 minutes to unpack all my
I'm
bags.
so proud of
It
you. Do you
was
know what's
like the best.
horrible about being like twice my normal size?
You have twice
My
the amount of
clothes are,
clothes.
no, they're just twice the size. They're
Twice as big.
enormous.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they take up twice the room. I'm like, oh,
hmm
well, for the same amount of
That's
things, I'd
why I
have to get out
switched
like the
from
big
regular underwear
luggage.
to thongs.
Good.
Cause
It's a
yeah,
smart move. That is a
it
super
just
smart
saves so
move.
much space.
You got to do what you got to
And I
do.
wore nothing but crop tops all vacation long. So it was amazing. Oh, all right. So I wanted to do one other thing with you
Yeah,
before
what you got?
we move on to the interview because the interview's I'm sure going to be amazing. But I wanted to give a shout out to a couple of other people on our YouTube.
Oh yeah.
So Catherine Campbell asks, "Is there any more podcasts from Diane? If so, can anyone tell me where they are? Much appreciated." So
Like, any
have you done
more
any other
like
podcasts
on other
recently?
people's
Like,
shows?
yeah, like have you guested on any
I've
podcasts
done
recently?
Yeah, I have. So all you have to do is, like, when you go into like Apple Podcasts or wherever you find your podcasts, like, just type in my name
hmm
and you'll get to hear like all the ones that I've been a guest on. And then next week I am going on the podcast of this ex pro wrestler
Oh,
chick named Jasmine St. Clair, and I'm super excited about it.
oh, Jasmine St. I think I've heard that name. Okay, cool. So we know to look
Yeah.
out for that one
Yeah.
next, and then you also have a comedy special. So if people are wanting more
Oh, I do have a
Diane,
comedy special. So yes, if you just go on like my Instagram, you look in my link tree, you can find it on my Twitter, all kinds of places. And then just finishing up the transcript, which is, by the way, is really weird. You have to provide Amazon Prime like the closed captioning like yourself. It's very weird. So like, it's going to
right?
be on Amazon Prime soon, but I would really love it if anyone can download it, listen to it. It will make my life significantly better, and it will make you laugh. I hope. I think so.
Oh
You've
yeah,
seen it,
I
right,
watched it
Danny?
and it was really good. Yeah, I loved
Okay,
it.
thank you. Thank
So
you.
okay,
Thank
and then
you.
Anna P commented, totally digging those sunglasses from the show where you were sitting on the Manhattan rooftop. She says, "I
Aha.
love hearing you guys discuss so many topics because you're so knowledgeable, and I learn a lot of new things, or get a lot of new insights while listening." So, thank you
Oh,
so much,
thanks,
Anna,
Anna.
and thank you for
Thank
being a
you. That's so
subscriber.
sweet.
And then Sandra Martins says, "Oh my
Hello.
God, thank me for watching this. I absolutely will pay to watch this podcast. When I need to relax, I lock myself in my room and watch this." So
Sweet.
thank you so much, Sandra. So yeah, and thank
Although,
you
like,
to everyone that's like, subscribes to the YouTube
yeah,
channel.
Dan and I can't tell you how much we appreciate all of you that listen and listen regularly. And like, you know what I would do? I would challenge each of you though, get one more person to listen. If every one of you gets one more person to listen, because
Hmm.
something that Danny and I really want to do is like grow this podcast because there's really not a lot of places that you can find information and laughs and things are genuine and legitimate and they're relatively fair. You know, people aren't like freaking out. It's not like one side or this or that and screaming at other people.
Hmm.
Nobody wants that.
Yeah.
Like there needs to be a place of like happiness, peace, and information in this world. Like what do we
Hmm.
say? We wanted to amuse and enlighten.
Exactly. Yeah. And
Yeah.
and by the way, exciting news for you, Diane. We have been charting in the top 100 comedy improv podcasts lately. So
What?
yeah. Thank you to everyone who helped make
Thanks to
that
everyone.
happen. Yeah. And
That's
then
incredible.
yeah.
And we're looking for like I've got a few feelers out. So we've got the Queer Money podcast guys, David and John, that are coming up in this interview that will be starting shortly, and we've got a few more surprises coming up of very interesting people for our continuing Pride Month.
Pride month. I think I'm
Pride
still supposed
Month.
to do drag at some point. My
I
drag's
would like
awful,
us
but I'm
both to
gonna
do
have so
drag.
much fun with it.
I
Yes.
can't wait to.
Oh yeah, are you gonna do a Neil? Who is it? Neil Emerald? Or no, Neil Aquamarine.
Neil Aquamarine, my Bond
Yeah.
villain. Hi, Charlie. Like the thing, the crazy thing is, especially like it's not fun now that like I'm overweight because like nothing fits and nothing looks as good. But for my entire life, especially until I got bigger, um, I've always dressed like a dude. I love three-piece suits. I
Mm.
love men's loafers. I love
Hmm.
like it's that's my favorite like menswear tuxedos. I think there's nothing sexier than like a sexy woman in a tuxedo. Like there's nothing better.
Hmm.
It's like so
I
I'm
feel
looking
that.
forward to this. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think there's like it's always like mm,
This is gonna be amazing. So I don't know if
it
it's
is
gonna be
gonna be
next week
amazing,
that drag week will be. We'll see. I might have to buy a few things, but
but it will definitely be during June.
yeah, and so obviously y'all will want to subscribe to the YouTube to actually see it visually.
Yes, yeah.
So
And I know right now I'm just sitting in like a bedroom in
mhm.
my mom's house
We
in a
usually look
swimsuit.
awful together. Not we don't look awful. We just you know
You
what?
don't look great.
We look
We don't put a
great.
lot of effort into it.
There we go. There we go. We
But
look
like I
great. We
did,
just don't
I
put a lot of
shaved my
effort.
armpits today, so like that's a move in the right direction.
Nice. Dang, look at
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
Well, I've been. Oh, by the way, I did finally like because I've been swimming in the ocean every day, and the funny thing is like it's like I'm like how am I not losing weight? I'm burning like 1,000 calories like swimming like a half a mile
Mhm.
like in waves. I'm like. and but like the other day I was like what's that moving near me and it was a tiny black tip shark. It was like
Oh
two and a
wow.
half to 3 feet. Yeah, it
Oh my
totally though.
gosh.
I
That's
I've
insane.
never swum as fast in my life. Like my Apple Watch was like, your heart rate's like your heart's gonna blow out of your chest. I'm like, like it was literally like like not big. Like it couldn't have done
Yeah.
anything to me. But yeah, I had like a little bit where there's like I pee a little bit, and then I'm just like, oh my god,
Oh, that's the
I gotta
last thing you're supposed
go.
to do. They chase the pee?
They probably would, but you can't control it when you're like that afraid.
Yeah.
And like it's not gonna do anything. It's a
Yeah.
tiny
I've heard they
but
rarely actually attack. Is that true? Do you know?
oh yeah, because we're like in the ocean with sharks like constantly. Like,
Yeah.
they're everywhere and we just don't really know it.
Mhm.
It was really wild. Like even when I was in Rockaway in Queens, like we'd be out surfing and like there was always like someone would always spot a shark, like constantly. Like big ones. Even off, that's off New York City. Like they're
Yeah.
they're just everywhere.
Yeah.
But so yeah, like bites and stuff are relatively like incredibly uncommon and death even more uncommon. But
Mhm.
like I'm not the luckiest person alive. Um, I have a real bad luck streak. So I'm like, if anyone's gonna get eaten by a shark, it's gonna be me,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and I don't want to go that way.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I sincerely hope that doesn't happen. I think you're
I hope so
getting,
too.
I think you're like probably the best ocean person that I know. Like, yeah,
I
like I don't know anyone that can
do
catch
love
a
the
wave
ocean.
like you can. So just
I love the
outsurf
ocean.
them, you'll be fine.
Oh my gosh. If only. If only. Like trying to get back into surf shape has been like pretty exciting too. I'm like, wow. I'm like, this is gonna take a minute.
Yeah.
Big girl have trouble.
All right, and then there's one more thing I was gonna
Oh
say,
yeah,
which
yeah.
is
What you got? What you got?
soon we're gonna be launching like an official hearsay Instagram and an official hearsay TikTok. So
Danny, I'm so proud of you
stay tuned for all of that,
for
because
all that good stuff.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
we're slowly making progress. We're a team of two,
Yeah.
so it
Team of
takes
two
time to get some things, but
with like other crazy other things going on in life,
mhm.
but we're
With
doing our
many worst
best
weeks
and
ever. Like,
seriously.
yeah.
Oh my gosh. You're not even gonna believe. By the way, guys, I'm gonna tell Danny what happened this week as soon as we get off. And like he may or may not pass out. Like I've got to get his fiance like in the room, just like be behind him to make sure like
Yeah,
someone's there to catch
someone
him.
got to catch
Because
me.
like it's shocking. But you know what? As Ice-T always says, if I'm upright, I'm all right. So
There you go. There
and
you
I
go.
know like and that's the thing too, is like I know so many of you at home are having like the worst weeks ever. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
so like we're all getting through this together.
Life doesn't stop.
No.
Just gets crazier and crazier.
It does.
I mean, my voice. I feel like my voice right now. I feel like I left the trip
Hmm.
sounding one way, and now I sound like Marge Simpson's sisters. Like, I, it's gotten a lot better. Like, it has healed, but I still feel so raspy and just like, So, but yeah, next week, you guys, I'm gonna be back to 100. Woo-hoo.
And I'll be in a different swimsuit next week. By the way, look at it. Look at there was like a Memorial Day
Ooh.
sale at Old Navy. $10.
Oh wow, nice.
I
So I
know.
can never fully. Every time we interview, you're like my internet down here in the basement is not the best, so you're always just like a super blurry. But I love the color.
That thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it must be your internet. I it was really funny. Nothing was working here, and I was like, "Mom, what's your internet speed?" And when I found out, I was like, "Let me fix that. Like, let me upgrade us." Like, so now we
Nice.
have like up to like I think it's up to 1,000 megabits.
Oh wow.
Yeah, it's like as
Dang.
fast as humanly possible. I
A
know.
gigabit.
A gigabit it is.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's wicked fast.
We have fast. I have a wall full of all of the entire house's electrical wiring
Oh yeah.
between me and the router, and I think it totally.
Ew. Yeah, that's not helpful.
Yeah, it's the one
You'd
thing
think it
I'm
would make
hating
a
about my new
difference.
setup, but yeah. Okay,
But
well, hey,
well, we love you
Diane.
guys. Thank you. And Danny,
Yes,
thank you.
thank
And
you.
I hope you guys really enjoyed the interview with David and John from the Queer Money Podcast. Here it is.
Toodles.
Hi, everyone. And as announced, we're here with John and David, the Queer Money Podcast guys. Hi, guys. How are you?
Hi there. Thank you so much
Hi.
for having
Yes,
us. We're
thank
good.
you.
And I should say you're also known as the Debt Free guys,
We
We
are. We have a couple brands going on right now.
which is
A little
pretty cool.
confusing.
No,
It is
that's
pretty
a
cool.
good thing, right? You want to have like a few brands going on. You want to have a few things going on.
Yeah,
So,
we're all constantly tagging, figuring out what works.
Oh my gosh, isn't that like, you know what? That you could just sum that up. That is life. Just constantly tacking, trying to find out what works. And you know what I
Yep.
found out? Not most things. Not most things occur.
Yeah. Some days it does
Yeah,
feel like that, yes.
it really does. And the older I get, I'm like, wait a minute, is this life? Like, is this it? Like,
This is
it's like,
Wasn't
this
there a
is
show
like,
like that called My So-Called Life?
Right.
yes, yeah, something like that. Oh my gosh, I'm so glad you guys are joining me today. So, as I was telling you, I listen to a bunch of the podcasts, and I have one burning question that is seriously going to kill me if I don't find out what it is right away.
Uh-oh, I'm a little
What
scared.
what the hell is fire? Like, seriously.
Oh,
Do you know everyone talks about fire and the fall of fire, and I'm like, "What is going on? What is
Sure.
fire?"
Sure. So FIRE is actually an acronym for Financial Independence, Retire Early.
Ah,
And
okay, okay,
it
that makes
it's
sense.
it really kind of started out from the whole um, beginnings of personal finance, really trying to reach financial independence. And then a lot of folks who started reaching financial independence started realizing that they wanted to give the middle finger to their boss, to the 9 to 5. And that's
Understandable.
really kind of where this kind of break happened. And people started saying, I'm going to quit the 9 to 5. I'm going to retire early and I'm going to pursue my passion, whether that was something in personal finance or something in the community or
being a
the
barista?
beach in Mexico, living in a
Yeah.
hut and living off the money that they made, right? That they had invested over their time. And there's quite a different varieties of fire. There are there are
That's the
people.
funny thing is I noticed, and I figured it was an acronym, but I was like, I'm like financial something something something. I
Right. Right.
I was lacking independence, retire early. Okay, so there are a
Yeah.
few different kinds of fire. You're saying,
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, so there's the fire police, the purists who truly believe that financial independence, retire early means that I've made enough money, I never have to work another day in my life, and now I'm going to live off of the money that I made.
gotcha.
And then there's the other flavors of it. There are the folks who John and I consider ourselves coast fire, which means that over our time period in working in corporate America, we invested enough money so that technically from now until when we decide to retire, we don't have to put any more money in our retirement. It will continue to
Gotcha.
accumulate.
At the
Given
rate at which you need to.
Right,
Right.
although,
Right, right.
what's going on in the market right now is always kind of the ups and downs, but we know we ride those out. We ride out the
Right.
ups and downs,
Like
right? I
there's
mean, we
enough time left before you need to pull it out that you're like, okay, we can ride this wave.
Yep.
exactly. And then there's there's a kind of another flavor, barista fire, or what John and I sometimes consider entrepreneur fire. We uh, Financially independent retire entrepreneur, and that basically means that you're
Ooh,
giving up the 9 to 5. You're going to work for yourself in some capacity, whether that's part time or as we have done, we've built a business around helping the
right.
LGBTQ community with their finances. Or some people do the barista side, and that is they just go find a job that covers their health insurance
Yeah,
and
that's what I
they
was gonna
work
say.
20 hours
Covers
a
health
week.
insurance and the
Yeah,
benefits, and they have dental, and
right.
then they're good.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm thinking of more of a barista fire. I used to be a you guys kind of fire, but it
Yeah.
backfired.
Well, the way this market's going, we might be a barista fire too.
Oh no, no. So wait, so you guys are married? Am I right?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes. It's and like,
Yes.
how long have you guys been together?
We're going on 19 years, right?
Yeah, we started dating January 1st, 2004.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing.
And
So
after
cliche,
3
right?
proposals and 3 yeses, we finally got married in 2017 for tax reasons and then did and then we did the actual deed in front of
The
our group of
show.
friends that did
Everyone,
the
yeah.
show in 2018.
Oh my god, that's hilarious. Yes, my husband and I that were together a very long time. We got married for tax purposes in 2004 when you guys met, and then for the show in 2005, which was
Oh,
yeah,
nice. Yeah,
got to
yeah.
do
We
the
wanted to
got to
make
do
sure
the
we availed
show.
ourselves to the Social Security survivor and spousal benefits. We were recording a
Seriously.
podcast one day, and we learned about the 9 to 12 month requirements to get either of those
So you're like, "Oh,
benefits.
we have to get on this like ASAP."
Yeah.
Yeah, I put on the
Yeah.
He's
mute button and
poking me
said, "We're getting
during
married."
the episode. He's like, "We're getting married as soon as this is done."
Do you know what? I mean, this is like one thing that like the whole LGBTQ community has really got to be worried about now with which I'm just like not to put it on a sour, but thinking about SCOTUS, right? And
Right.
the Roe versus Wade decision and how that is might affect lots of other decisions that are considered privacy decisions, like the ability to get married when you're gay.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know. I hope that nothing ever happens to that, but I don't really trust this Supreme Court not to deal with that in a different way.
One of the glimmers of hope that I have that they won't be able to overturn that is that there was a large push from major corporations around the country for
It's
marriage
true.
equality, because it made having all these
Financial
different
sense.
categories made it hard
Yeah.
for them to do taxes for at the corporate level and also at the individual level. And then on top of that, a lot of Republicans, specifically George Bush, attorneys pushed for it. So I'm hoping that that combination of things makes it harder for them to be able
Makes
to
it safe.
overturn that.
Yeah.
But of course, things are topsy turvy these days, so we don't know.
Yeah. So
You
so
never know when you have
never
a
have any idea.
fascist government, right?
Yeah.
Right. No, like it blows me away. Dude, and I always think of what would Jesus do? Just limit rates. It's
Right.
like,
What would Jesus do?
Right.
Exactly.
just limit everybody's. I'm pretty sure. No, I'm pretty sure he healed everyone for free, and and didn't ask for insurance. I think he was pretty cool with just about everything that was
Right.
going. I think the whole point of life was having free will and free agency to choose which you want to choose.
Right.
So
That is
limiting
not
that.
what I'm getting from the
I know,
fundamentalist Christian
weird.
Republican Party. That's
Yeah,
weird.
Right, it's weird.
From the Party of Freedom.
Yes, from the Party of Freedom. It always blows me away.
We
So
like free
another,
speech, but don't say the word gay.
don't say the word gay. Yeah, don't say abortion. Don't say all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Hopefully I have a lot of hope for sort of the midterms this year. Hopefully
Holding on for dear
everything.
life kind of
Yeah,
hope.
Oh my
exactly.
gosh, like, can you imagine? It's gonna get so grotesque. I mean, the one thing that might actually, and that's actually where it's not technically true. I'd actually love your thoughts about it. A lot of people think that under Republican administrations that finance things are better, right? And they think that under Democratic presidential administrations that money thing is not as good. You pay more in tax, etc. And it's not necessarily true, though, is it?
No, it's not. And we seem to be on a wave where Republicans are in charge just long enough that they can fuck things up,
And
and
spend a lot of money.
then they lose an election, and
Yep.
suddenly the Democrats are in control of the economy, and they're like, "See,
Come
they
fix
can't. They
it.
keep screwing it up."
Yeah, like always, right? It's pretty mind blowing.
Yeah.
But I think
Well,
like the highest gains in the stock market and everything have always been under Democratic presidents.
yeah, exactly.
Well, I think that's because they have gone to shit in the recently under Republicans. They've really gone to shit, right? But I
Yeah.
think what's so interesting is that the assumptions that we have about the spending and taxes and all of that being different for Democrats versus Republicans is something that predates Ronald Reagan, right?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people, especially family members of ours who absolutely
Who we love dearly.
And mine, who send me
Right.
daily texts. Yes.
Right.
Yep,
Yeah.
Republicans
Yep.
happen to good people.
They
Yeah.
they forget that, although Ronald Reagan is the one who gave us the biggest tax breaks, he also hiked taxes 13 times while he was
Right.
president. But they don't talk about that, right?
No.
But it's the pre-Ronald Reagan time period when conservatives were conservative fiscally. We have
Right.
completely lost the fiscal side of conservatism, and now I think it's just a free for all to win votes and make as many people as they can happy to get those votes and stay in power.
Temporarily. Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
The
a very
rich.
good point. Yeah. The very good rich. I know. I used to make a joke. I'm like, I have so many friends that are Republicans and family members. It's fine if you're Republican. Just don't vote that way. Don't fuck up my life.
I love that. I have to use that.
Just like, it's fine. Just don't do anything about it. Yeah. But it's a first. So, okay. The biggest question is, how is queer money different than money?
Oh goodness, how long is your show?
Oh, you know what? We sometimes Danny, who's amazing, by the way, and it's a bummer that you didn't get a chance to meet him, but he is like in Mexico on vacation, so like good for him.
Oh, so
Good for
sorry
him.
So
Oh
sorry
my
for
God,
him.
he's always somewhere like amazing. I'm like, where are you? He's like, I'm in Istanbul. I'm like, wow. He's always like,
Nice.
I'm like, what are you doing, Danny? But sorry, I even lost it. But Danny and I will sometimes just go on and on and on, and we'll break it into like 3 episodes, and people will listen.
yeah.
Sorry,
Nice.
I wasn't saying that to people, you guys at home randomly
That's
listen. I'm
awesome.
just blown away because the sound of my own voice like kills me. I don't know if you guys feel like that. Like, I don't know if you listen to every one of your own
Sometimes.
podcasts.
I-
Oh my
I-
gosh.
say
I struggle to listen. It really hurts me to. I like our content. I think we produce good content and we have
It's great content.
provide
Yeah.
helpful, useful advice. But I just hate listening to my voice as well, and so I struggle to listen to her. He listens to every single episode, and I'll go through them as I can, but it's a little bit hard.
I'm doing all the QC because we did have an episode one time that was published that shouldn't have been published.
Oh,
they
fair
published they published the raw episode rather than the edited episode.
Oh, that's brutal.
And if you've ever gone back and listened to episode, I think it's number 4 or 7, I can't remember, back when John and I were doing our own publishing.
Because you guys are in like episode 300 something now, I should say.
Right.
Yeah,
For the people,
316
just
published
published.
this week.
Yeah.
But I think it was actually I think it was episode 7 where we're going along and we're talking to a colleague of ours, and all of a sudden we have this conversation about, are we recording? Are we sure? I don't see the squiggly line. Are you sure we're recording?
Oh no.
And we left that in there.
We never took it out.
You know, it's like it's back in the early days, and
we
we're
don't have the
like,
raw
it's
file
okay.
anymore, so we can't even fix it. So whatever. It's
It's
part of what I
that's
like
not that
it-
bad. That's not so bad.
no. But part of what I like about leaving that in there is because people are always like, "Oh my God, you guys are overnight successes and everything's amazing." But no, like we had our bumps and bruises, and you can go back and look at the ugliness if you want to
Along the way, and just be like. By the
we're
way,
just
I
able
could
to
not.
scale.
Anyone that is listening, I could not recommend the guys' podcast more. I'm like, I can't wait to listen to like all 316. And I learned so much stuff. So obviously when I say what's different about queer money, obviously those tips are good for anyone. Anyone can listen to your podcast and get
Yeah.
like some really, really good advice. But
Yeah.
like I by the way, I should say this. When Danny and I do something wrong that we think about, we have dreams about it. So it's a little less technical. We
It's
wake
keeping
up
you
the
up at
next
night.
day and say, like, can we
Oh,
just
no.
delete that whole episode? I had a dream that was bad. And he's like, I had a dream that was bad too. I was like, oh my God.
Well, that's so serendipitous. I woke up last week after we recorded an episode with 2 women on being anti-capitalist living in the United States, and I was just like, you know what, David, we cut that show too short. I don't feel like we actually came to like a conclusion or an agreement or a resolution
Oh.
of any way, shape, or form. And after he thought about it a little bit, he's like, you know what, I don't think we did either. I wonder if they would be willing to come back on the show, and we'll try to come up with a productive conclusion of some sort. Because I think
Right.
we kind of got stuck in like this isn't working and this isn't working. You can't do this, and I don't think we actually gave a useful
But it actually came
CTA
to like
the
a,
listeners.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's like a button. And did they come back?
They've agreed to come back. We haven't recorded
Hey,
that yet. So
nice.
yeah,
But
totally.
yeah, it's weird. It's weird like that, right? When you wake up and you're like, huh.
Keeps you up at night.
I know, right? The
Yeah.
podcast. Well, to be fair, Danny and I did tell some incredibly personal stories that may or may not have involved handcuffs. So like it was,
Oh.
yeah, take that.
What
anyway, but
episode
it was-
number is this?
Yeah, exactly. It was hilarious. It was, you know what we did
That can
instead?
either
We
be
just had
really bad or really fun.
or really good, right? I'll let you guys just imagine which one it was. But yeah, we were dying, and we ended up doing an episode that we started saying, "Hey, we had a great episode, but we got rid of it because we got too personal." It was pretty funny. So okay, so what is the difference between queer money?
So this is our
And-
favorite question to get because we
Is it
have a
really?
lot of answers. It is, yeah, because
Okay,
you know, it's
good.
kind of the crux of our conversation, our whole podcast. So David and I believe that 80% of money is the same for everybody. You know, $1 for you works the same way as $1 for me. I'm getting no interest in my savings account, just like you're getting no interest in your savings account. A credit card works the same for all of us. That's all very transactional. And that's the finance in personal finance. But we believe, similar to the Pareto principle, that 20% of finance is based on our backgrounds, our histories, our sexual orientation, gender identity, gender, the money stories we tell ourselves, our heritage, all that, religion. But that 20%, just like the Pareto principle, has an exponential effect on the entire 100%, and that's the
Right.
personal in personal finance. And so that's sort of the crux of what the Queer Money podcast is. And I'll let David to chime in here, but we just produced a study, an LGBTQ money study in partnership with the Motley Fool, that sort of dove into what some of the discrepancies are for LGBTQ folks relative to the general population. And just some highlights are that we're less likely to use the tools and resources that help you achieve financial independence than the general population,
Wow.
such as having a checking or a savings account, such as having a will, estate, trust, sort of the fundamental tools to help you achieve that FIRE or financial
Yeah.
independence. We're much more apt to have student loan debt, credit card debt, personal debt and less likely to have mortgage debt than the general population. A couple years ago, between the 2012 and 2018 Prudential LGBTQ financial experience surveys, they
Hmm.
highlighted that similar to the gender pay gap, there's a sexual orientation and gender identity wage gap. And that simply sounding gender nonconforming or looking gender nonconforming can
Is
preclude you from
enough.
getting hired or promoted. So you can be so this affects
Wow.
everybody. That came from a University of Surrey study. This affects everybody. So whether you're
Yeah.
straight, LGBTQ or not, if you don't sound man or woman enough, commensurate with your gender, then you're likely to not get hired or promoted relative to those people who sort of fit the stereotypes.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, I know there's always been like a bias and a preference toward thin people, to people that are better looking, to things like that. But that's incredible that it crosses that line as well too.
Well, I think that speaking to what John was talking about for the way that we approach our finances, whether it's because we choose to or we've been excluded, we don't get involved in the things that would allow our lives to grow financially, right?
Right.
So we are less likely, even though we may have access to an employer-sponsored retirement plan,
May
we're
not
less likely to
participate.
participate in it. And if we are participating in it, we're contributing less to it than our straight peers, which means that we are not building up enough money for a comfortable or maybe even a sustainable retirement,
Right.
right? We are not investing at the same level. We don't have investing accounts. We don't have life insurance at the same level. All of the financial tools that are out there, we are not accessing. Now, there can be maybe some reasons for this. One of the things that we weren't too surprised by, but it's
Yeah.
always interesting when you see the numbers. Roughly 48% of LGBT folks feel that they have been discriminated by someone in the financial services or banking industry. For
Right.
trans folks, that's as high as 66, I think 66 or 67%, right?
Right.
And 44% of respondents to the survey said that they felt that that discrimination in part contributed to their
Of
lack of
course.
financial security, right? So, you think of going into a bank. We've heard stories like this of two women going into the bank together,
Yeah.
wanting to get a mortgage and ask, okay, where's your husband's? Where are you? You two can't buy this house together. You
Even
need a man to
today,
buy this
Oh my
house
God. I
with,
can't
right?
even imagine, because even as like the breadwinner in my marriage, like it was nuts. Like I'd be out car shopping with my husband and they'd be like, "Oh, your wife has expensive taste." Even when I was buying the car, like with cash for him,
right,
you know what I mean?
right.
I can't
Right.
imagine being two women. And yeah, and of course it's such a, and finance in general can be such a dark cloud for people. Like they can't see through it. It seems too complicated. It's too crazy. I don't know how to, and then you add discrimination on top of that. Of course.
Makes it harder.
Right. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I think that there's also John and I talk about this a lot on our podcast from our personal experience, that there are things about who we are as individuals, the way that we were raised, that kind of in some way hold us back.
Yeah.
John and I believe that one of the major reasons why we accumulated $51,000 in credit card debt was because not only were we raised in times and places where it wasn't okay to be gay, or in families that
Right.
don't accept us for who we are. But then when we got out on our own and we were earning money, we felt like we needed to prove to everybody that we were equal, right? And the
Yeah.
easiest way to do that in America is to
Just
show
spend money.
all of the stuff you have, right? The kind
Yeah.
of car I drive, the kind of jeans I wear, the vacations that I take. I mean, granted, when back then there wasn't social media, we didn't have
Oh, can you
Thank
Instagram,
imagine?
God.
Can you imagine?
No.
right?
I am grateful on a daily basis that it didn't
Right.
Yep.
exist when I was
Right.
younger.
Likewise.
But
But
that makes
then
sense. And it's also, there's probably too, like when you're not accepted by anyone else, self-acceptance is so much harder. And so then you're punishing yourself, which is not allowing yourself to be like financially free and get what you deserve and what you've earned, and that
100%.
whole,
But then we came out and we became members of the gay men's community, right? And we know what the media does this great job of depicting what the perfect gay man is supposed to be, right? You have
yeah.
to have the body, you have to have all the stuff, you have to live, Fire Island, you have to
Yeah.
take all the
Completely. You have
right.
to
So
have
we
this fan.
Oh
Right,
yes, we all have that
exactly.
fan. It's rite of passage, right?
So we felt like we had to keep up with our own community, and it's those kind of
That's
pressures. I think that I I see a lot of young queer kids today who I feel like I don't know for certain, but I just kind of feel like they're having the same kind of pressures.
yeah.
I mean,
And I'm sure they are too, because like if you've had to leave one whole part of your life behind because you haven't been accepted and don't fit in, the thing you need more, like we all need to belong so badly as
Right.
humans. Like you
mhm,
need to belong, and you'll, especially when you're young, you don't realize that that matters so little. As we get older, it's like, oh yeah, it doesn't matter. Like I don't care what other people think. But like when you're young and you need it so badly, of course you'd go into debt for it.
right.
Yeah, 100%. And that's part of why we're so concerned with the things that are happening in states like Florida and Texas is with these don't say gay bills. It's not just eh, the messages that those kids in those countries, those kids in those states are getting, as well as the LGBTQ kids around the country, is that there is something about me that I can't even articulate yet, but I'm being told it's wrong.
So
So
wrong that you can't talk
we
about it.
can't even
Right.
talk about it
Yeah,
until I can buy a gun. We can't talk
right.
about who I am. And
And so, and
so,
by the way, you can't buy a toy gun that looks like a gun, but you can buy a
right.
real gun.
You can buy a
Yeah.
real gun. So it's just how are we conditioning these kids, and how are they going to respond when they do reach adulthood and they are out on their own? And there are several levels of concerns with that, but from our perspective, a big concern is how they're going to
It's
manage
financial.
their money.
Yeah. So yeah, that would be a huge concern. And the thing is too is like how you manage your money. One of your podcasts, it was amazing. He was talking. It's you want people to be financially free, not because like wealth is the most important thing in the world, but it facilitates. So like I always would tell people, like money buys you two things in life. It buys you time. So like
Mhm.
I don't have to clean my toilets anymore, right? Like that buys me time. And it buys me opportunity. Like I could pay for Harvard
Absolutely.
tuition, even though I probably didn't deserve to go. Like because
Right.
I made the money. I made the
Right.
money to pay. And I got to get like a world-class education. But that was from money that I made. And when it goes away, you can make your own time, you can make your own opportunity. It's just a lot harder.
Right.
And
Right.
so having things like that financial stability, like having health insurance and, being taken care of, having a will, having an estate plan, things even like that. Like if you guys have ever had anyone that were something stuck in probate, by the way, if everyone listening, get a will,
Yes.
make a will.
100%. Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes, 100%. When to kind of continue on with that, the crux of why we do what we do is that we feel that in order for us to be a stronger queer community than we are, we
Yeah.
have to be stronger financially as individuals. Because the stronger we are as individuals, the stronger we are as a community, and the more time, the more resources and money that we have, that we continue to push for equality. We
Right.
can't continue to wait for organizations, corporations, politicians to get the equality that we need, because that strategy, unfortunately, as we're seeing
It's
right
not
now, is
working.
not a
Yeah.
winning strategy.
Right.
No. No. So yeah, and that community is going to be more important than ever as things get more exclusionary, like in Texas.
100%.
These don't take a. It's
Yeah.
so crazy to me. So have you guys always been in finance? Like, did you start out in finance? Did you go to school for this? Because it's a very bro field.
It
Do we feel
is.
bro to you?
And
No.
Oh, okay, good.
okay.
I'm like, oh my god, no, 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 no,
Like,
no,
I can
no,
gay
no,
it
no,
up
no,
if I need
no.
to.
Where's your Patagonia vest, man? You know what I mean? No, it's funny because my apartment in the city is on Wall Street, so it was like very like a lot of bros. Like, and
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't wouldn't as a non-bro, I would not know how to function in a very
Yeah.
bro environment if you guys have been
Well,
in finance forever.
that's exactly why we asked the question of do you feel like you've been discriminated by someone in financial services? Because Mass Mutual did a study in 2016 where it found that 56% of respondents said that they haven't engaged with a financial planner because they assume that someone in financial services either didn't want to or didn't know how to help someone like them. So we wanted to take that question a little bit deeper. But to
Wow,
your earlier question, yes, we both came from finance. I actually went to school for exercise physiology. I did not go to school for finance, but
that's cool.
I got into the industry because during the .com bubble,
Yeah.
financial services firms were hiring anybody off the street.
Oh my
Literally, I
god, it was
walked in off the
amazing.
street and they gave me a job.
Were they like, here, do your Series 7? I always just remember that
Yes.
everyone's going like, I'm gonna
Yeah,
get my Series 7. I'm gonna get my
that's
Series 7.
that's how it was. Yeah.
Yep.
So we
That's
had our whole careers
awesome.
in financial services, and for a couple of reasons we decided to get out. One was because it was very bro, and
Yeah.
despite working for a company that would continue to get 100s on the HRC Corporate Equality Index, and despite the fact that financial advisors were asking us as the LGBTQ BRG leaders in that company for collateral that showed LGBTQ folks, the company refused to do that. And so we were like, why do you have this? Why do you continue to earn this
Wow.
100? Why do you have this LGBTQ human resource group
Right.
when you won't actually do something substantively that will help the community? Because part of our argument is maybe one of the reasons why LGBTQ people aren't reaching financial security and independence is because they don't see themselves in the advertising and
Represented.
marketing and exactly.
It's
Yeah.
always a white couple with their golden retriever walking down the beach.
Yeah.
Oh my God, it's
That was
totally
always our
true.
joke.
Yeah.
Is that's
No,
what it
it's
was.
totally true. It's
And who
like
wants
that's
that
exactly
retirement
who it
anymore?
is.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Not
exactly.
everybody wants that.
No,
Yeah.
that would be like it would be quite boring. It depends. I guess it depends. And yeah, I don't want to be that couple. I don't know. I don't think most people want to be that couple. But bro, like yeah. So that makes a lot of sense. I can't believe the company they were just doing it for show for the most part. Everyone wants to appear like the
Yes.
optics of like they're doing something good for
Right.
different
Well,
communities. But
today we're recording this on June 1st, and this is the day when all
yay!
the logos on all the
Oh,
companies
everything.
change to rainbows, right? And it's interesting because John and I, with the experience that we've had in working with what we've done over the years, it's pretty easy to see what companies are doing it just for show. They just
Yeah.
have the logo. They just pay the fee to get the B, right?
Oh,
And
yeah.
then there are companies that are
As
right.
as she says with her from last year's Pride Parade, and I can't tell you what logo is on it
Oh, I can't
on the
see it.
bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. John and I say we don't need another party. We
Yeah.
don't need another party from financial services companies or any of these other companies. We've celebrated our freedom enough. Now what we need is the same thing that you're doing for women investors.
Right.
There are there are billions of dollars every year spent by financial services companies hosting golf tournaments, and
What?
they won't even spend $25,000 on education for the LGBT community.
Okay,
And
that's insane.
it is insane. It's stupid because the LGBT community has $1.4 trillion in buying power. And where are we spending it? We're spending it on the companies that are putting themselves in front of us, right?
Right.
We're spending it on Absolute Alcohol. We're spending
Uh-huh.
it on Orbit's trips to Palm Springs or Puerto Vallarta. We're buying the things that the companies that are truly engaging with us, but
Right.
financial services companies don't want to do that. And this is our personal opinion, is that this is what we call cascading homophobia. There are people who truly within the company want to do what's right for the LGBT community, and they get up the courage and they start talking to the people who can make those decisions, and they get to the point where they're talking to the people who can make the decisions as to yes or no, we're going to create an ad with LGBT individuals, or we're going to create an education program, and that person has to answer to somebody
Right.
as to why they're doing it. And the person that they have to answer to is somebody who is either overtly homophobic, has
Right.
just come out right out and said it, or maybe they have kind of gleaned this from the conversations, the jokes that they make, or the way that that person acts, or they know their politics. So at some point, that homophobia cascades down enough that the answer to whether or not they will do these kinds of things for the
So
community is
no.
no. And that's part of the reason why we think this is happening. This is the bro side of the white
And homo
supremacy within the
yeah.
within the financial services organizations.
Right. Because you wouldn't like it would be like the fact that you even said, someone in the organization has to work up the courage to
Right.
talk, like you shouldn't have to work up the courage when, especially when you say 1 point, how many trillion dollars for
1.4.
1.4.
$1.4 trillion dollars,
Right.
because usually these guys will give up any kind of whatever what if they consider it morality or, whatever they consider it to be. They'll give up anything when $1.4 trillion is on the line. But it makes sense
Well,
that,
just think about the Super Bowl. All these companies that invest, what does it cost to have
yeah.
advertising in the Super Bowl? Like
Oh, look,
millions
it's,
of
I think it's a
dollars,
billion.
right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
You would, nobody would be afraid to go to their executive, their CEO, and say, "Hey, we want to have advertising during the Super Bowl because we think it's going to glean this many account openings or this many
Right.
hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars in new assets." Okay, great, wonderful. Nobody would be afraid of
Perfect.
that, even though
Yeah,
they're probably investing millions or billions of dollars to get that advertising.
exactly.
But to get $25,000-$50,000 for a education program, or for many companies, even advertising in front of the LGBTQ community to try to garner those same kind of clients or the same kind of assets, not going to do it.
Not gonna do it. Well, which is ridiculous because, like, what I was thinking about when I was listening to all the podcasts while I was like doing a bunch of things over the last couple days, I was like, well, these guys should have like a video series. You know what I mean? Where you could teach people the basics, with like a whiteboard, like that kind of thing.
Whiteboard.
Where you, what like to make it really simple because it is very hard to people to explain like points on a mortgage, things like that most people don't have basic financial literacy to begin with. And then,
Right.
like we talked about, if you leave your home early or you don't have good parent, that kind of thing that teaches you there's no way you're going to know any of this stuff. And
Right.
people aren't
Right.
really signing up for finance classes in college. They're not part of the general education, which I find very bizarre.
Yeah.
And
Well,
then you
and
add all these
I'll
other
also
elements.
also call out LGBTQ media. In part because they won't cover these kinds of topics as well. And I get that it doesn't get the clickbait, right? It's not sexy.
Sure, it's
It's
not as
not as
sexy.
exciting
Yeah.
as RuPaul. It doesn't elicit fear like when we have all these political all these this negative politics that's happening to our community. It doesn't get the clicks.
Right.
But what we need from our LGBTQ media is to start producing content that actually can help our community survive and then
And
thrive and then
prosper. Yeah.
influence elections and change the dialogue throughout the country.
Right, because it's gone insane. It's
Yes.
crazy to me. But you know what is sexy? What's sexy is being on your own private yacht in Portofino
Yeah.
because you've totally
Yeah.
become financially independent. Like that's what is sexy. Like that's the thing. Like
Exactly.
there's a way to make it sexy, and it's like because it's a hell of a lot nicer to be financially independent. And when you kind of have to be because you don't have anyone to rely on a lot of the time, it's like you need
Right.
it.
Yeah.
It's so
Absolutely.
Yeah.
crazy. Yeah,
Well, and
it's
it's that sometimes that's the question that we ask ourselves: is this intentional? Is it intentional that we have been excluded? Because if we're excluded, then we aren't self-sustaining. If we aren't self-sustaining as a community, we're struggling. If we're struggling
right.
as a community, we're easier to suppress, right? So
That's
you know,
absolutely right, because when you're struggling to survive, you can't focus on the
right.
hierarchy, the powers that be, everything else that needs to change.
Exactly.
And you think of that about that $1.4 trillion from a financial services standpoint. If our community were just to commit to giving 1% of that money, investing
Yeah.
1% of that money, we're talking about $14 billion being invested. I think that the financial services uh, community or all the organizations would love to have $14 billion
Right.
infused into the system. But also, if we as a community could get our shit together and
Yeah.
put that 1% behind the political organizations that would really
Oh,
truly move the needle,
yeah, that would
$14
change
billion
everything.
would allow us to elect not only a different president, but
Yeah.
lots of different politicians. But if we're so concerned about our day-to-day safety, we're struggling day to day, we don't think about those kind of bigger
No.
picture things.
It's Maslow's hierarchy of
Yep,
needs, you know what I mean?
absolutely.
It's
Hmm.
if you're just struggling for survival, like you're not paying attention to the self-actualization where your financial freedom comes in,
Yeah,
like
you
not
don't
at
have that
all.
luxury. And that's
No.
why we want more LGBTQ people to be financially independent, because then they do have that luxury to be able to worry about those higher level things and to be able to change conversations and elections.
And I'm sure like part of like my shock at some of these things, it may be very like everyone, I'm sure lots of the people listening are like, what? Yeah, we know that. It's very hard to be gay. But part of it too is that I've lived in New York for so long. So
Right.
most of my friends who are LGBTQ, you know what I mean, are financially independent. They've been there since they were teen, they've been working. they know it, or they work in finance, you know? So like
Yeah.
Yep.
you wouldn't even, they know the difference between like Roth and like the regular. That was like amazing. That episode was amazing, by the way.
Oh.
I was like, they're like, don't get into the shark infested waters of Roth. Like that's only if you really know your stuff. You know, you
That was the
really know
Roth
your stuff.
conversion ladder episode,
Yeah,
I
the Roth
think.
conversion.
That was like,
Right.
but it was like really interesting because I was like, oh, I could definitely know. I'm definitely not going to do that. Okay, all right.
Right,
Like,
It is great for some people, but yeah,
it is great for some people, but yeah, I
Get
was
your
like, okay,
accountant
very,
involved.
yeah,
Yeah.
Right.
right. Get somebody that knows what's going on involved. But
Right.
it's but yeah, so it's so hard for me because, and you know, it's one of those places, like especially in Manhattan, where being out is not even a thing. You know, it's just like it just is. It's just like you are, you aren't. Like who cares?
Mhm.
And I forget that it's not like that in so many places.
Right.
Yeah.
It's just not.
Yep.
Right.
There are 50 other states.
Yeah, there's even a whole other state outside of Manhattan in New York City.
Yeah, right.
Believe
That's
it's
true. Yes.
crazy. Like, it gets pretty hairy.
Yeah.
The best was, as I say, guys, like when I ran for Congress, I had so much fun. I had all these amazing ladies, these trans women who had worked in like AOC's campaign, and they came upstate to work for me, and it gave me such pleasure. They, first of all, every one of them was stunning beyond all belief. And I would run into these old Trump voting, like chewing on a piece of hay kind of guys who'd be like, hey, I saw the ladies from your campaign. Oh man, they're so sexy. I was like, right? Aren't they? Aren't they? Like
I
I was
love
like,
it.
they're hot. And it was like amazing. I'm like, if only they knew. Like if
If
only.
only.
I'm like, but that's the thing too. You would want them to go like, oh yeah, she's beautiful no matter what. And
Right.
but that's the thing. But it is like homophobia is one of the last. It's kind of like it's randomly acceptable in a lot of circles.
Yes.
Yeah. There's there's a brilliant article in the Intelligencer about the history of homophobia and where it came from. And everything that we're seeing politicians do today is exactly what was done to the LGBTQ community to try to change the narrative heading into World War II. It's the same exact
Really?
model, trying to use us, saying that we're all, what's the word? We're grooming children, trying to use that sort of language as a way to sort of sway elections. And this has been happening throughout history for the last 50 plus years, almost 100 years, right? So I would highly encourage everybody to check out that Intelligencer article. I can't think of the name of it, but it's a whole history. It's quite long. I'm not
No,
even done it
that's
yet, but
okay.
it's
That's
quite
amazing.
brilliant.
No, like
Yeah.
yeah, my gang, I have a very nerdy following, which is very handy. So everyone likes to, for the most part, really likes to read, likes talking about finance, likes things like that, likes tips. And that's why I figured I'd talk to you guys more about like these things, and they can come to your podcast to listen to like all the actual granular data. And your episodes are really well titled too. So if anyone has specific questions about finance, like turn to the guys. Like they explain things really, 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 really well.
Or we
Really
have
well.
smart guests on who
Yes,
explain it
we
very,
have a
very
lot
well.
of smart
Yes,
guests.
and lots of smart guests. Yeah, lots of
Yes.
smart guests, which
Yes.
are the best things in the world. And I'm taking up so much of you guys' time, but
Okay.
if there's one thing you wanted to leave everyone with, what would be the greatest advice that you could give to any people, young, old? You can break it up if you want to young and older. And I think your advice is pretty much great, even though that 20% personal does apply, because I'm sure it's like when I was going through your episodes, it makes so much sense. Things like adoption that most straight couples will not have to worry about, things like just there's a lot of stuff that is really specific in that 20% that makes a lot of sense. But I really do think that everyone could benefit from listening to you guys' show. So
Yeah.
for anyone listening,
Our goal is to help LGBTQ people and allies reach financial independence. So, with that broad perspective, that my one piece of advice would be, regardless of your sexual orientation, gender identity, or your gender, for most people, I think we simply need to start talking about finance, your personal finances more. Be as comfortable. Our friend Gabby Dunn has a podcast called Bad with Money, and before she launched that podcast, she did this video series throughout New York City, asking people, putting a camera in their face, what's your favorite sexual position, and people didn't really
answer.
hesitate to answer that
Yeah.
question. But when she asked them something about their personal finances, they clammed up. They weren't able to answer that question. So why are we more comfortable sharing our favorite sexual position than talking about our credit score or what our net worth is or whatever? So with that, I would just encourage people, the first step in achieving financial independence is to start talking about your finances. Maybe that's just with yourself or with your partner. And then that can slowly grow, but have that conversation.
I think you're right. Talking to yourself is really good because sometimes I bet a lot of those people that she asked didn't even know what their balances were.
Yeah,
You
quite
know those
possibly.
people that remember they used to have like the checkbooks back in the day, but they would never total anything. You know those people? You remember those people?
Back when I had all my credit card debt, why wasn't I not paying
Just
my
winging it. Yeah.
because I don't know how many times I had NSF fees because I wrote a check that I couldn't afford.
And I knew better because my mom, she even to this day, she still does. She balances it to the penny, and I have
Right.
never in my entire life done that.
Are you serious?
Well, because now I don't. I don't use a checkbook. I don't. When was the last
Oh
time?
yeah, no, nobody. I'm like, no, nobody uses a checkbook.
Every now and then, somebody's like, "I need you to send me a check." I'm like, "Oh God, where's the checkbook?"
I know.
It's like
so
sending
hard
a
to
fax
find.
machine.
What, can I fax that to you? Does that work?
I'll fax that to you, and then I'll call you on and let you know on your pager that it's been
Right.
sent.
Let you know it's like sent, like made out of 5 and like a 3.
Yeah. Like,
Yeah.
Who does that anymore?
I think.
So yeah, what were you gonna say?
I think the one piece of advice. I don't know. This isn't necessarily advice, but it is for us to be aware of the fact that money weaves into almost every single aspect of our lives, right? Although
Yeah.
we don't necessarily want that to be the case, and I'm not saying that money buys happiness, but when you think about it, money affects the kind of food you eat. It
Yeah.
affects how you take care of your health. It affects how you take care of your mental health.
Yeah.
It affects where you live, and where you live has a big impact on your mental health, especially for LGBT folks, or people who are more progressive, right? It does. Money has a big impact in our lives, and a lot of us would rather not talk about money, but then it has a detrimental impact on those other aspects of our lives.
Right.
There's the saying that's always, every time I go to a dentist office, it seems to be this saying seems to be up there: be true to your teeth or they will false to you. Right.
Ooh.
Right. So
Yes.
there's some sort of truth to that when it comes to your money.
Yeah.
Take care of your money today, and it will take care of you tomorrow. If you don't take care of your money today, you're going to have to rely on somebody else to take care of you tomorrow. And I don't know about you, but the direction that this country is going, I certainly don't want anybody in government taking care of me tomorrow, because I know
No.
they're going to do a really shitty job.
A
And
very
I don't
bad
want to
job.
live out the rest of my life thinking about, God, I wish I would have.
Yeah.
So even if it's just, John and I say, just spend an hour a month on your finances.
Wow.
We spend on
that's
average,
it.
right? On average, we spend roughly 2.5 to 3 hours a day on social media. If you were to just take 5 to 10 minutes of that and to check in on your finances, read a financial article, listen to a financial podcast, learn just one good habit and put it into action. And those little tiny habits add up over time. We're not asking you to make monumental changes. We're just asking you to be money conscious, be aware of where you're spending your money, how you spend it, and how it can it can be really a good thing for your future.
Exactly. And it's funny. I actually tweeted this today. It's June 1st. If you start now, in 2 weeks, you will feel it. In 4 weeks, you will see it. In 8 weeks, it will be a part of you. Keep going.
Yeah.
You've got this. And that applies to everything in life, right?
100%.
Exactly.
Totally.
And then
Right.
if you're like me, if you're someone that had to pay a lot of alimony and lost quite a bit lately, it's never too late to start over, is it?
No,
No,
it's
absolutely not. It's never even too late to start. One of the most reoccurring questions that we get are from gay men predominantly who are in their 50s or 60s and they
Right.
want to retire tomorrow and they have nothing saved today. And they're like, what can I do? Is it too late? And it's not too late. There's always
not too
something
late.
that you can do. But the idea is that you need to start now.
Yeah.
Right.
And like Les Brown, motivational speaker,
Yeah.
who passed away several years ago, he said, will it be easy? No, but it will be worth it.
And
That's the important thing.
That is true.
It
And
will
everything
be
in
worth
life
it.
that's worthwhile is difficult. Everything in
Yeah.
life that's worthwhile takes a bit
Including
of
divorce.
It gets easier. The more you do it, it gets easier, right? So
But
it
don't
No,
won't be
it
practice
does.
difficult
divorce.
forever.
It does. No. Everything does get it. Eventually, it all gets easier. It all gets easier. Yeah, that's all fantastic, guys. Thank you so much for like joining us and like filling us in on all this
course.
stuff. And
Thank you for having us.
Yes, thank
you
you.
guys like obviously we'll list everything in the show notes for everyone at home. You guys can find the guys, but do you want to give like your website really quickly?
Yeah, we're debtfreeguys.com. We're queermoneypodcast.com, and we're pretty much those on all of the social media channels.
And like I said, it's totally worth listening. Like seriously, I really I enjoyed every one of them. I listened to like tons of them because I was
That's
just
so
like, oh.
awesome to hear. Thank you.
Yeah.
You're that one person.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, thank you guys. And hopefully we'll have you guys back on again soon.
Of course, we
Thank
love
you.
it. Thank you so much for having us.
Bye.